Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Sander. Some of you may know me as 777 Driver on Twitch, and I'm making this video for primarily Steve Ellis, who has had issues with the 777 VNAV. However, this will be public on YouTube, so I guess anybody with the link can maybe get benefit from this. First of all, an introduction to myself. I go by 777 Driver in the community, some forums as MD82, and I'm a 777 pilot, expat pilot living in the Middle East. First of all, I'd like to apologize beforehand. I live alone with a cat here at home, so every time I start talking, all of a sudden in my house, the cat feels a need to start meowing uncontrollably, so my apologies for that if it happens. What do? I've been enjoying flight simming for the past, I'd say 25 to 30 years. Now MSFS with my brand new PC setup that I just finished last week. We primarily fly in small groups. I have 3 friends that I regularly fly with. One is a KLM dispatcher, and the other ones are back home doing different jobs. We're fairly OCD, even before I started flying the 777. Just to give you an example, this was my flight I mentioned to Steve from Hong Kong to New York, which I did yesterday. We go over the flight plans, we write it all down, block times, we go over the performance figures, and when time permits we fill in the flight plan, see if it all computes. So that is a bit about me. I'll close this down. So what we're doing today is the same approach Steve did a few weeks ago, which is the Romeo, let's see here. Sorry, route. Romeo 3 Romeo arrival for RNAV runway 20 into Kathmandu. Before we continue, who is Steve? Steve is a very nice Twitch streamer. Started following him a few months ago. He's very nice. So if you're on Twitch, please go and check him out. Steve_Ellis100 is his Twitch handle. So what we're doing today is finally settling the score on 777 VNAV. It is a bit of takes a bit of getting used to. It is different than the Airbus. It is different than the 737 even. We'll go over some operating principles, the 777 VNAV traps, and then we'll prepare for the descent and approach. So operating principles, as I mentioned before, it's different than the A320 and the 737, where those two, usually when you put in approach, everything is set up. It'll follow the speeds, it will respect flap limit speeds and such. The 777 on the other hand, it will just give you a very basic 170 knots to final, and that is all it does. So you have to populate, in most cases you have to help your 777 a bit in doing an optimum VNAV approach or RNAV approach coupled to VNAV. Another thing is VNAV path versus VNAV speed. I'll try to demonstrate it during the descent. It's a short descent since it's a high elevation airport, but I'll try to show it to you. So simplified, it has 3 principles. One is VNAV path, or 4 principles basically. VNAV path or VNAV speed, either with the speed window open or closed, or speed intervene or speed intervention, active or not active. VNAV path is quite self-explanatory. We can only see the top to bottom line, which is basically LNAV. The profile magenta line we cannot depict in the 777, but it's there, and that is what VNAV path will try to follow at all times. Now it happens that the 777, and it's modeled here pretty well, and it's exactly the same in real life. The 777 has let me make sure I'm recording here, otherwise I'm doing all this for nothing. Yeah, there we go. The 777 has a problem in which it seems that Boeing doesn't know how slippery the plane is. Initially it'll do an amazing job following the VNAV and staying on speed, but when it's below 10,000 feet and it comes time to reduce, it does a terrible job. The airplane is much slipperier than the VNAV performance would have you believe. So you have to help it out as much as possible during your descent preparation, and it varies from approach to approach. Now in sim there's a few things you have to contend with that you don't in real life. One is pressure differences, big pressure differences, which will cause you to leave VNAV path suddenly, or leaving your throttle not matched or not synced with the sim throttle. And that is why, if you can see here, let me see if I can do this. I've put this, the show throttle position, just to help me out. Alright, and that becomes a lot clearer later on. Now VNAV speed, there's two principles again: speed window open, speed window closed. With the speed window closed and you're in VNAV speed displayed here, it is kind of like flight level change, but it's flight level change to whatever your FMS is commanding. Right? And another key feat is, as soon as you're in VNAV speed with the speed window closed and you come back on the vertical path, either from below or above, it will automatically revert to VNAV path. If your speed window is open for some reason, say ATC gave you a speed or something, it will completely neglect the path. Meaning, basically it's another flight level change or airspeed hold if you're flying Douglas airplanes. So you have to take care with that. And I think that's what happened with Steve as well. His throttle remained open. The VNAV path went to VNAV speed, and in VNAV speed you get hold right here, which is basically the throttles. Auto throttle says you're commanding auto throttles with your levers. Now if your throttle is stuck here and you have spikes, all of a sudden your throttle will wake up where it's supposed to be an idle, for example. And I'll try to show that as well. So for now I'll match it back, and the plane is flying pretty quickly here, so let's delve right into the approach setup. So Romeo 3 Romeo arrival. We'll put the legs page again and we'll go over it. So Romeo, and again this is a database limitation, so as you can see certain things are not there. 777 cannot do speed only, so you'll have to tell it something. So 270 knots at Romeo, and since this is 10.5 or above, a bit down the road, let's do this 10.5 or above as well. Just some random number that makes sense and does not change your descent profile, just the speed. So bam, that's one, execute. Then KT 632, that's good. Then Ratan 250 knots, 10,500 feet or above, that's good as well. Switching to the approach, RNPAR, we'll zoom in. From Ratan, KT 450, 448, 446, 444, 442 at 8,800 or above. Birup KT424, max 220, 7900 or above. 422, 421, 419, and this is, because it says 3-degree glide path after this, means this is the final approach point. 7,400 feet at KT419. So before we continue, it's important to highlight it as final approach fix. Oh, it doesn't go like that, of course. So we'll put a 2-mile ring around this just to highlight it, and it becomes clear later on. Back to legs. 418, 416, 414 with the short final, and then the runway, which is good. And then the missed approach. Yep, 493. Alright, that looks good enough. So, we've checked the speed entries, default. Now we want to make sure the plane is nice and slow. How do we do that? First thing we need to know, what's our landing weight? So we're going to be landing with approximately 11.5 plus 201.3 is 212.8. That's going to be our landing weight, more or less. VREF is 138, so we'll put that here. Now once we know that, we can start letting the plane know what we want to do. At the final approach point, 7,400 feet with an airport elevation of 4,400, you'll be at 3,000 feet high. In this airport, we want to be flaps 20, gear down, just to be sure. Okay. So, what are the flaps 20? What is the flaps 20 minimum speed? It's very easy in the 777. All limit speeds or lower limit speeds or maneuvering speeds are based off of the VREF. In this case, 138. Flaps 20 is VREF flaps 30 plus 20 knots. So in this case, it is 138 plus 20 is 158. So we want to be 158 here. Gear down, flaps 20. That's one. A little bit later, we want to be VREF 30 plus 5 and established with final configuration. So that's 138 plus 5, that's 143. 143. Now we want to be here at 143 already, of course. That doesn't work, but we'll put it here, I think. This will work. So now we got those two speeds in, we've helped the 777 slow down even more. It's telling me to reset MCP altitude, and if I remember correctly, the minimum altitude is 10,500 for now. So 10,500 feet set. So we can continue. So now we've helped the 777 out as much as possible with the speeds, and now all we have to do is during the descent and approach is monitor it, make sure it does what we want it to do. So we're following the inverted L principle, so we've put in the departure and arrival. The route checks out at the beginning of the video. We've done the legs. We're not flying an ILS approach, so this remains empty. Fix, we've put this for the RNAV approach, and we're just going to put the MSA reference for the approach. It's centered around the airport. And it's a 50-mile non-standard ring around. This will give us a visual indication whenever we need to start at look at MSAs instead of grade altitudes. So we are on top of descent. Idle is commanded, as you can see on the FMA, and I will match my throttles and put them to idle. This is very important. I will just pause the descent preparation for just a bit to show you VNAV. Right, so I will now leave my throttles where they were. I'll open the speed window. I'll go to VNAV speed and I'm in hold. My throttles are still at idle because I have no throttle spikes. But as soon as you have throttle spikes, let me just jiggle my throttle a little bit. Look at what happens. They jump up. What happens if you jump up? You're introducing thrust, and look at how I'm leaving my path. My path is gone. So let me quickly correct that. Back down, idle, speed brakes extend. Let's go get the path again. And I'll show you with the speed window open how it will disregard the vertical path, and I'll go from high to low just to show you. So now I'm in hold, idle thrust again, 274 knots, speed brakes extended. Here comes the path, and as you can see it goes straight through it. I'll retract the speed brakes, close the speed window now, and because the speed window is closed all of a sudden and I'm close enough to the path, it immediately, well, now it's gone again. It's back to VNAV speed, hold with the speed window closed. But you will see, because I have thrust open, my descent rate is less than what should be, so I'm regaining the path. And you will see now it will automatically capture VNAV path. There it goes, idle VNAV path, because the speed window was closed. Right, so that was a demonstration I was trying to tell you before. Right. Back to planning here. So we've put that, and the last is the progress, page 4. We are on RNP 0.3, and I don't see a special, there we go, RNP 0.3. So that is the descent preparation for the FMS. We're now established in the descent, speed window closed, VNAV path. We've done all the help, we've given all the help we can give the 777. So now what I prefer to do is have my progress page and have the first officer on the legs page. I can check the restrictions here. And very important, no matter if you're flying a 182 or a Concorde, is your altitude times 3 table. Now this airplane is very, very slippery, so it doesn't do altitude times 3. But you need to at least know that to have a start reference. So, oh, and one last thing, this is a company procedure. Some require it, some don't. But the airport elevation is 4,400, and the company wants us to fly 250 knots when you are lower than 10,000 feet over the airport elevation. So in this case, I don't think Kathmandu has a requirement, so it's just 250 to 10, but we'll change it to 250 to 15,000. Which is an added restriction that will force it to calculate a new path, but hopefully it will not change. So we will execute this, and because there are altitude restrictions here, there's hardly any difference, and speed restrictions as well. So decrease the range. Then back up, we have the minima set. Let us put the let us pull up the weather actually. Flight information, ATIS. Should have done this before, of course. There we go. So while we wait for that, because we're a bit rushed here, I will just read it out here. It's 250 at 9 knots, range in the vicinity. Scattered 3000, view 2500 CBs, temperature 27, QNH 1013. So QNH is 1013. Since we are descending to an altitude, we can already set 1013. There we go. And let's just see if it matches. 280 at 6. Yeah, slightly different. Still 27, still 1013. Good. So we got the weather. So what we'll do now is performance. EFB. Nope. OPT. No. OPT. So landing en route. Get information from flight planner. Doesn't do it. Runway 20. Import aircraft details. Thrust reverser, it's high elevation, all operating. Anti-ice off, air conditioning on. Let's do no. Runway wet. Just in case, runway wet is good runway condition. Landing weight will be a bit less, but this is good enough. Wind speed. Weather, okay. Review, uplinks, weather. So wind is, let's import the weather. There we go. Calculate. So auto brakes 3, enough runway. So we'll put auto brakes 3. And we'll just use full runway length, full reverse. Now we have everything set up. And you can always check by full FMS setup and 1, 2, you see I'm missing something, which is minima. Minima for the approach, category D airplane is 4715. I'm not going to twist to 4715, this will be much quicker. EFIS control on, EFIS and 4715 minima. That's confirmed. And we go back to menu, EFIS control off, back to FMC. So now that we have everything set up, we can do the descent checklist, which is recall is checked, notes, there are no notes, auto brake 3, landing data VREF 138, minimum 4715, and approach briefing completed. Descent checklist completed. Since we've changed altimeters already, we can do the approach checklist, which is altimeters 1013. Done. So we're now into the approach. Let's put that here. Let's go back to the approach star. So here we are, starting the approach. Oops, we should be at 270 knots, so it's telling us that we need drag. We will gladly comply. Right, so that was a bit of a rush, but I think we've got everything sorted now. There we go, 270 knots, speed brake comes back in. Speed brakes retracted. And now it's simply monitoring the airplane to make sure that you want it to do what you want it to do. We are currently at 17.3 minus 4.3, that's 13,000, so 13 times 3. Minimum 39 track miles. How many track miles are we now? We are at 50. So we're getting a good 12 to 13 miles to reduce from 270 knots to approach speed. which is fine for this airplane. Alright, so we're reaching Ratan at 10.5 or above. It'll be reduced soon to 250 knots. We're within an MSA of 11.8, but we will be sticking to the route. There's no weather, so just stick to the route all the way in. We're close enough to 10,000 feet, which means lights and belts on, and in we go. In such a tricky approach, never stop thinking, always see what's ahead. The Ratan 250 is being complied with at the moment. We are at 15.3, so that's 11,000 feet, times 3 is 33 nautical miles. We are at 43 nautical miles. We have an RNAV approach incoming with radius to fixes which have been validated. And we can start changing the chart to show the approach. Descent procedures are completed. Approach procedures are completed. And all we need to do now is land. I'll set up terrain on my side as a reminder. Since there's not much traffic, the FO can keep weather on his side. There we go, 250 Ratan, still a bit fast. We're not playing games with this approach, it's between the mountains. So even though it's still within limits, speed brake out, 250 knots. Now, another item is the 777 approach mode, which leads to the fourth mode of VNAV, which is VNAV path, but still with the speed window open. Now there's later versions of the software, I think company requirements or company preference, that has this newer version. Most 777s do not, including the ones I fly. The only way you can stay in VNAV with this speed window open is when you're in the 777 approach mode. When are you in the 777 approach mode? You're in approach mode once you've sequenced either the initial approach fix or the intermediate fix, I don't remember. Or more importantly, the one we all use is as soon as you extend flaps. So if I do this now, let me show you, and I'll quickly close it again because it's a critical approach. If I open the speed window, this will go to VNAV speed, that's it. So open, and I have to chew my own words because it should go to VNAV. That's because it sequenced the initial approach fix already. So already I can, because this is a very long instrument approach, already I can be with speed window open in VNAV path. If you saw in the descent before where I opened the speed window, you saw that it went to VNAV speed. Right, now I've sequenced the approach so it doesn't care about the flaps anymore. I can already do this. So it's a high elevation airport. We're between mountains, beautiful rainbows outside, crappy weather. So let's dial this back. It's not gonna, well, let's put a lower altitude. We can go to 8,000 before it levels off. We don't want it leveling off because as soon as we level off, we're fighting against the vertical profile. So we'll keep the descent going. There we go. And it has a maximum of 220 knots at 424, which is over here, and that's why it has this deceleration profile. That's beautiful, man. It's happening very, very quickly. My apologies, but it's good that it's a YouTube video because you can pause, rewind, go back, review, however you like. So now it's reducing from its 240 to the 220, but we have the speed window open, so we're going to do 18. We have 23 miles to touchdown, and we are 6,300 So there's only 4 miles extra to reduce it. So we want to start configuring pretty early. You see, it should be at 220. The 777 has failed miserably. It's still at 250. So we don't like it. Speed brakes open. Let's slow it down. This is the typical 777 VNAV in action for you. So we've sequenced the 8000, next 7900. We'll set that here. There we go. And let's add some flaps even. Flaps 1. And we'll bring it way back down. Alright, so 9,304, that's 5,000 feet above the airport, 15 miles, we're 18 miles. So we have 3 miles extra to slow down with, and we already have slowed down and we already have slats out. So we should be good. Alright. Next, after 7,900 is final approach altitude of 7,400 feet. And that's the final approach point. Remember, we wanted to be there at flaps 20 gear down, so let's start configuring since it's only 5 miles away. Flaps 5. Flaps 5 speed. And you see, flaps 5 is VNAV 30 plus 40. Flaps 1 is VNAV 30 plus 60. Clean speed is VNAV 30 plus 80. It's very simple on the 777. It's 20 knot increments every time. 15 and 20 are the same. They're both VNAV 30 plus 20. Alright, approaching 7,900. We'll set the initial approach altitude. As you can see, the banana is right on the final approach point, so that's good. Next will be the approaching glide path, and this is a very important point because we're going to set minima, configure the airplane for landing, etc, etc. The minimums you'll set here, and it will take it straight from this setting down to the nearest 10 feet. Okay, so 2 miles approaching glide path, gear down, flaps 20, set speed, not 25, 20, speed 158, set minima 4715, it'll display as 4720. There we go, minima set, and we're all set up for the curve in. Landing checklist. There we go. And now we turn it. We have no clue where the airport is. We're just flying instruments. As you can see, it's following very nicely. Missed approach altitude
2,500.
It's 10,500 feet. 2,500 will configure fully a little bit earlier than usual. Flaps 30, set speed.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull
That
up.
is understood and briefed. And now we want to set the missed approach altitude. PMDG has an issue where even though it's not supposed to go to VNAV alt, it does it anyway, so you have to pay attention with that. What I do is put this back at 1,000, whiz it all the way up quickly, and then back down to what it needs to be. 10,500 feet. That's it, we are done. Landing checklist complete. Checklist complete. And now we just let it fly in.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain,
We are visual, that
pull
is
up.
understood, we will continue.
Terrain.
So, We'll get ready, match the throttles just in case. And this is the final turn in. See, if you do it correctly and you help the VNAV out and you monitor it, it does a fantastic job. Same as in real life. Never a dull moment with the 777 VNAV.
1,000.
Missed approach altitude is set. Here comes the final turn. No airport yet. Jesus Christ. There's the puppies. There's the approach lights. Leave it. It'll do a better job than we can. Let it do its thing. Puppies are 2 and 2. It's making its turn. Turn predictor is on the center line. Winds from the right. Checked. Look at this, beautiful.
Approaching minimums.
Checked.
Minimums.
Landing. Autopilot disengaged.
$50, $40, $30, $20, $10.
Speed brakes up. Reverse is normal. There we are, guys. "60 knots, idle reverse." And auto brakes off. We made it. Very straightforward, very difficult approach, not for the faint of heart. And we'll do a 180 here at the end. So that was it. I'm sorry for the rapid fire talking. It went a lot faster than I thought. But hopefully with the YouTube video you can rewind, come back, revisit as often as you want. Thank you for watching the video, Steve. Good luck with Kathmandu. Hope I'll be watching you when you get to do it again. And till next time.